Hey everybody, welcome to the SmartB Sports Update, episode 7. Perfectly done that time.
I think it's actually number 8 though.
Sorry. Far out.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I can't get it. I just can't get it. It's never going to work. Gonna have to change everything. I noticed today we're both wearing our SmartB t-shirts.
Yes, we are.
I'm so disgusted with the NRL that I don't want to support it anymore. It's been 3 days since we were here, and there's so much nonsense going on.
We wouldn't want it any other way though. We love our Rugby League drama.
Gives us something to talk about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we may as well get into the NRL. And we'll start with some game previews with Friday night's game, which is, it seems to be like it's predetermined actually. Storm versus the Roosters in Melbourne. We'll just go for the odds. So Storm started the week at $1.36 with Unibet and are now $1.27 to win it with SportsBet. Roosters started the week with at $3.50 with Better and are now $4 with PointsBet. I would have to say that has to do with the fact that the Roosters are missing 8 players.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to run you through that Roosters team news if
definitely.
you like, John. Yeah, so Joey, as you've alluded to, John, Joey Manu with a hamstring, Billy Smith with a jaw, and Joseph Suwali with concussion. They're all out. It's a triple blow, 3 big-name players. Paul Momirovski and Corey Allen are the new centres, while Jackson Paulo comes in on the wing. Momirovski, he'll play his first NRL game since round 9, while Paulo's last game was way back now in round 12 against your Dragons, John.
Well, Momirovski's coming back from injury. That's the thing as well. So he's underdone. And Sam Walker is carrying an ankle issue into this match as well.
Yeah, it's just that there's no end to the dramas there. In terms of the Storm's team news, John, Xavier Coates, he's out after picking up an ankle injury last week. Ramus Smith comes in on the wing for him. Justin Olam, he's got a recall in the centres, and he'll come in for young Tonamapea. He suffered a head injury against the Broncos. Ryan Pappenhausen, unfortunately undergoing surgery over the weekend. We all know about that. What a terrible situation for the young guy. You got to feel for him. Alec McDonald, he's been recalled to the bench for his 13th appearance of the season, and Grant Anderson's the 18th man. Yeah, a fractured ankle for Pappenhausen. It's terrible.
He'll be back stronger, hopefully. At least it's not a recurrence of the same injury. That's
right. That's the upside, and I guess the other upside is that, well, at least, I know he's missing out on a big game here, but at least it's happened at the end of the season. He's got the whole off-season to recover.
Yeah, and from a fractured ankle, that's not like it's a 12-month injury or anything like that. He'll be back in the trials. It's like 6 weeks or 8 weeks of rehab. Get some training under his belt, and he'll be back in the trials.
Yeah, we all wish for an injury-free 2024 for Ryan Pappenhausen.
Except he's a Queenslander.
Putting that to one side. We're fingers crossed for Ryan. Hopefully,
we never wish any harm on any player. We just wish that they were unavailable. So, look, can you give the Roosters faithful any hope? You're pretty good at coming up with some stats for.
Well, I can run you through a whole bunch of stats on this game, John, and then after that we might talk about how the game might go. So the Storm won both meetings between these two teams during the regular season. The Roosters have won 6 in a row going into this game, but the first 5 of those, John, came against non-top 8 teams. Obviously, apart from that win over Cronulla.
That doesn't count.
In the first final. The Roosters have won just 4 games from 11 at Amy Park. I guess that's no real surprise. Melbourne's won 7 of their last 8 against the Roosters. Melbourne's won 7 of their last 9 finals games at Amy Park. If you're looking for a try scorer wager this weekend, John, I know you love the odd flutter on a try scorer. James Tedesco's got 7 tries in his last 9 finals games.
Okay.
These two teams have played in 4 finals games, including that 2018 grand final. The Roosters have won 3 of those, so there's a little bit of optimism for you if you're looking for it, John. And if Melbourne win this game, they'll reach the preliminary final for the 8th time in the last 9 seasons
It's
too.
counteracting statistics, Roosters beat the Storm in the finals, but Storm always win in the finals.
Yeah, exactly.
Always
I've tied myself in a bit of a knot there with these stats, John. Look, you're looking for some hope for you. I'm going to call them your Roosters because they are now that
till the end of the year.
Given that your Dragons are not in the finals. One upside for them is Cameron Munster and Jerome Hughes were just way off in attack last week against the Broncos, John.
I've heard a lot of media, seen a lot of media giving it to the Storm for that, but I just think, watching the game, it was the Broncos shutting them down. I don't think enough credit is going to the Broncos and how well they played and how much... They went out there, they identified what they need to do to Melbourne, and they did it to Melbourne. Yeah. If the Roosters can emulate that, then they have a chance, but Roosters... missing 8 players, missing major players like Joey Manu, even JWH, Daniel Tupu. And there's Sam Walker carrying that ankle issue. I'm sure if it was a regular season game, Sam Walker would have been rested for the week as well. But unfortunately, they can't afford it. I've got no hope for the Roosters, but I have. Look, even in 2008, I think it was when Roosters were bottom of the ladder, and was it when Brad Fittler took over? Right, it was 2008. Whatever year it was that Brad Fittler took over.
I think it might have been the back end of 2007 that he took over.
So I remember in that year, all of my Roosters friends gave Roosters obviously no hope against Melbourne, and it was just after Brad Fittler took over, 1 or 2 games in, and I was like, you should give them a bell, and they won. So the Roosters. Doesn't matter who the coach is, who the players are, they can always beat. And they have been winning, albeit against not the best teams, but they've been winning really dirty, so...
Yeah, they've won 6 in a row. You can only beat who's put in front of you. Just looking at, smartb.com.au for all your best betting odds. Please gamble responsibly, of course. Best odds at the moment for the Roosters at $4. That just tells a story to me, John.
Yeah.
I just think that Melbourne, they're not going to put another game like that against Brisbane to get that. They just don't play badly 2 weeks in a row. They're not going to have off days 2 weeks in a row. You couple that with this Roosters mounting injury toll, an unavailability toll as well, with the likes of Waria Hargreaves missing through suspension still. Just those factors together, John, I really just can't see the Roosters getting through this one. I'm sorry to say.
No, I agree with you. It looks like next week I'm going to be either on the Warriors or the Knights, whoever wins the Saturday game.
That might be a little segue into the next game.
So Warriors and the Knights play in New Zealand on Saturday at 4:05 Is it 4:05 Yeah.
So it's a bit... I did have a look on the NRL website at that, John, so it's a bit misleading. It says 4:05 but they don't tell you whether that's local time or whether that's Australian Eastern time. So you just have to sort of work that one out. Maybe look in your sort of your EPG at when the game starts. That's probably your best bet on this one.
I think it's 4:05 Australian time, but I don't know.
And then that's good in the sense that it'll be on before so it won't clash with the AFL, so we can watch both games on Saturday.
Definitely, and it's good for the Warriors fans to be able to go at that good Saturday night time of whatever it is, 7 p.m. Or New Zealand's 3 hours behind, right?
I think it's still 2. I think it's 2 when it's I'm pretty sure it's still 2.
We have the internet. We could look it up, but who cares? We'll just guess. Warriors started the week at $1.55 with PointsBet, and they've stayed at $1.55 with SportsBet. The Knights started the week at $2.67 with BoomBet, and are now at $2.60 best odds with BlueBet on smartb.com.au. You win some, you lose more.
Happy to take you through a bit of team.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like we've touched on earlier, John, Sean Johnson, the star halfback, he's been named to return from that calf injury that kept him out of that loss against the Panthers. Dylan Walker returns to the bench, and Freddie Lussick goes to 18th man. If Johnson fails to come up in time, then Walker would slide into the halves as he did against Penrith. I think my understanding on Johnson is that he's going to play, but he's not going to be 100%. So they're just going to roll the dice on him and hope that all goes well.
They have to.
Yeah,
they have no choice.
As for the Knights, John, Jackson Hastings with the ankle and Lachlan Fitzgibbon with the shoulder. they're both out of this sudden death clash. They picked up both those injuries against the Raiders, of course. So Adam Clune, he'll come in at halfback as he did in the last 3 games of the home and away season. Dylan Lucas joins the forward pack, while Adam Elliott, he received only a monetary fine for that careless high tackle charge coming out of that game on Sunday, and he will line up.
Yeah, I think
for the Knights,
it'll all come down to Sean Johnson, how well Sean Johnson plays. They're probably paying $1.55 right now because Sean Johnson was named.
So the way that I look at it, John, is that I'm going to be honest. I had really high hopes for Newcastle going into this final series, and as I've said to you before, my 2 sentimental favourites in this final series are playing against each other. Upside is one of them's got to win. Downside is one of them's got to lose. But anyway, so the way I look at this game is that I was sort of disappointed in Newcastle on Sunday, John. I thought they should have won that game by a lot more, struggling to beat a team like Canberra, who were out of sorts going into that game. Remembering Canberra had only won 2 of 7 games going into that one. They were looking scratchy. Newcastle had the game at home in front of a screaming home crowd. And to only get home by 2 points in extra time, I know there was the high of them winning on Sunday and Monday when we were on, but now that it's Thursday, you sort of take a breath and let the dust settle on it. They don't come out of that looking too good to me. And so I look at the Warriors and go, well, you know, if Sean Johnson plays at home, I think the Warriors get it done.
Yeah, you got to... Warriors have been a more consistent team. Got to remember, Warriors have been a more consistent team all year, with or without injuries, whereas the Knights came good at the end of the year, and they won, 10 in a row?
It is 10 in a row.
Going for 11 in a row is a massive achievement in modern rugby league.
Yeah.
So I give it to the Warriors. I just think the Warriors will win. If they've named Sean Johnson and he comes off, he can play less, but if he comes off, you saw how the Warriors were last week without in attack and defence, very disjointed.
Yeah.
Very poor, and we discussed it on Monday. Sean Johnson's probably the linchpin for that whole organisation. So if he actually the injury overcomes him and he has to come off, I think the Warriors will collapse. But if he stays on the field the whole time, he could just play a role like Cooper Cronk did in that broken arm grand final. Yeah,
2018 grand final where he was basically a player coach. He was on the field just coaching the team.
Like having a trainer on the whole field the whole time. I think that's what will happen with that. I think it'll be a really high scoring game. Both of these teams have been attacking in beautiful form. One of the things about this match actually, excuse me, if you saw, Willie Mason actually hammered the Knights' spine on his podcast during the week.
I did see that.
He said no opposing team would be doing video analysis on the Knights' spine because Ponga is the only good player in the spine. Tyson Gamble from the Knights has since come out. He's one of the spine. Since come out and told him to go get effed.
Yeah, I love it though. I love it from Willie. I love Willie. The 2004 Clive Churchill medalist, of course. I'll always love Willie and have a soft spot for him. But I love it. I love how he's come out on the front foot and made a bold statement like that. And I love how Tyson Gamble's hit back. That's what it should be about. The media should be about entertainment, entertaining the fans, and that sort of back and forth between ex-player and current player. I think it's great for the game.
Yeah, well, if you look at the spines, after he said it, I went and had a look. If you look at the spines across the league, he's kind of right. It's not the Knights don't.
I think he is right. Spine. I think let's face it, without Kalen Ponga, this just doesn't happen, John. Newcastle don't get anywhere near the top 8. This 10 in a row doesn't happen. This is the Kalen Ponga show.
Even if you go down to the bottom of the ladder with the Tigers, they, in theory, on paper, have a better spine than the Knights. They've got Api Coruscant and Luke Brooks in there. He's right, but he's also a bit mean.
I'm happy to, if you don't mind, John, take you through some stats on this game. So, like you mentioned, John, Newcastle, 10 wins in a row, going for 11 in a row. And if they pull it off, John, that'll be a club record, actually, which they set back in 2001 and 2002 when Andrew Johns, of course, was at the peak of his powers. The Warriors only had 43% of possession against the Panthers. So if I'm a Warriors fan, that's an upside for me. they didn't get much ball in that game. If the ball is at more of a 50-50 or they have slightly more possession than Newcastle, I'm liking their chances a lot more, especially if Johnson can get through the full 80 minutes. So the Warriors beat the Knights in Wellington in round 1, but the Knights hit back and won in round 6. So it's 1-1 in terms of previous meetings this season between these two. It'll be the first finals meeting between the Warriors and the Knights. Probably not that surprising. No. They've both sort of come and gone from having success. They haven't had sustained success. It's the first home final since 2008 for the Warriors.
That was when the Warriors knocked the Roosters out, right?
15 years ago, a long time ago now. The Warriors have won their last 4 games at their home ground there in Auckland. It's now called Go Media Stadium. Very hard to keep up with the names of all these stadiums, John. The Knights have won 4 of their last 5 against the Warriors, so that's an interesting one for you. Dallin Watene-Zelezniak has 8 tries in his last 6 games at the ground. The Go Media Stadium. Knights wingers Dom Young and Greg Marju have 46 tries between them this season, and whereas Dallin Watene-Zelezniak and Marcelo Montoya have 30 between them, so that's a big advantage to those 2 Newcastle try scorers. Warriors front row Adam Fanua-Blake, he's averaging 66 post-contact metres a game this season as well.
Dom Young is an unbackable anytime try scorer.
I know you love your try scorers.
But there's I don't know. I can't bother looking it up. He's probably paying $1.
I know you love your flutters on your try scorers.
Yeah, I like. Hopefully it's at 4 p.m. so I can watch it. This is the game of the round for me. I'm obviously gonna watch both because there's only 2 games to watch. But the New Zealand versus Warriors versus Knights is going to be a fun one. I remember in 2008 when the Roosters had to go to the Warriors' home ground in a finals match, and Brad Fittler, who was the coach at the time, mentioning that was the scariest thing he's ever experienced in his life. The New Zealand Warriors blackout, when it's just 25,000 screaming. Massive New Zealand dudes all in the black clothes.
And one thing I'd say about the Warriors is, I'm sure you've watched your Dragons play against them many times over there, as I have with the Bulldogs, of course. But as an opposing fan, watching your team go over there and play them, there's nothing more terrifying in the game than if your team's got a big lead against them and they start making a comeback and you just can't stop them. They get on a roll, the momentum's in their favour, the screaming crowd's in their favour. You find it really hard to stop their big men. Once they get momentum, there's no stopping them, John. They can score 4 tries in 10 minutes and come back. If you're ahead by 20 with 10 minutes to go, you can still get beaten by them. You're never safe against the Warriors
100%.
at home.
There's actually a game that I remember really clearly, Dragons in New Zealand, when Wade McKinnon played for them, and the Dragons were up. I can't remember when it was. It was probably 20 years ago. The Dragons were up, and then Wade McKinnon scored a length of the field try. And then on the kickoff, Wade McKinnon did a length of the field try. And I was like, oh, crap, what's going on here?
I remember one year where this is probably going back 20 plus years ago now, where the Bulldogs were up by about 16 with 5 minutes to go. The Warriors came back and drew the game. And that was in the pre-Golden Point days where a draw is a draw.
The good old days.
Yeah, the good old days. So that's... You're just never safe against the Warriors, John. And that's the other thing that worries me from a Newcastle point of view. If the Warriors' big men get on a roll, can Newcastle stop them? Can they contain them? I'm not so sure, given that I think Newcastle, while this is a very long winning streak, I think they took some steps back against Canberra, even though they got through the game.
Well, they probably hit their peak, to be honest. And they've done well.
They have done well. Look, they have done well. Look, if Newcastle get beaten this weekend, still a great season.
Yeah, and next week will be Newcastle, and it'll be how good they've done.
Yeah, and I know they're looking at extending the coach Adam O'Brien. I believe he's already had 1 year left on his contract in 2024, but now they're looking to extend to 25 and 26 as well. Remarkable turnaround. Just at the start of this or before this winning streak had happened, he was looking at being in the Centrelink line. I think he said it himself. I was going to go to Centrelink. Now look at him. Centrelink's the last place he's going now, John.
I don't think they should extend him. I like the Sonny Bill 1 year contract thing.
Oh, you don't think they should extend him?
No, I think
that's a fair point. So you don't think they should jump the gun here?
No, I think they should wait till next year.
Yeah, that's fair.
What if they extend him and they collapse?
Yeah, that's fair, because a lot of clubs jump to a decision to extend too quickly. They could have They could finish in the bottom 4 again next year, and then all of a sudden you've extended him for another 2 years. I tend to agree.
I know it's hard for players to want to go to clubs and things like that. Coaches to sign players later in the year if they can't confirm who the coach is. But if they wait till mid-season with Adam O'Brien and then see how the Knights are actually travelling, then go, all right, sweet, you've created consistency, we'll extend you, then he can start hunting his players and things like that. But just chucking it in early now, you don't know, next year they could just collapse. Ponga could get a devastating end-of-season injury in playing for Australia, going to be out for 12 months, and then what's he going to do?
And I wonder, does Kalen Ponga... I have to say this. Does Kalen Ponga get a cut of Adam O'Brien's next contract? Because without Kalen Ponga, this contract extension doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. So that's I mean, they can do whatever they want, but I have experience as a fan when the Dragons extended Steve Price's contract on Anzac Day 10 minutes before the game started. And I think they did the same with Mary McGregor, extended it for no reason, just randomly. And then, they had to pay both those coaches out. It's just, just because they're on a streak doesn't mean your coach is doing a perfect job. Adam O'Brien has done an amazing job. I reckon he's probably the coach of the year because he went from 14th to 10-game winning streak into the finals. But it's just if I was in charge of the Knights, I'd be telling him, mate, I trust you. Next year we're going to see how you go. Yeah,
I think that's a fair call. And good luck to Adam O'Brien if you can get a 2-year contract extension. Good luck to you. I think you make a point. See how they go. See how they go in the first sort of 8 games next year, the first third of the season. If they're happy with it, then you extend.
Even from his perspective, they could extend him now using leverage of, we were going to sack you at the beginning of the year, we're going to extend you now for a reduced pay. But if he goes off this and then they go on another, 8 games into the season, they're in the top 4, his stocks go up, so he could push for a higher pay as well.
Because I guess, and further to your point, and I think it adds more credibility to your point, is that, it's sort of a two-way street, these 10-game winning streaks like this that turn the season around. You go, well, that's great, but where was that form earlier in the season?
Exactly. So if you can maintain this consistency early next year, it helps him and it helps the club.
Yeah, he needs... It's still not been a consistent season, even though it's finished with a huge winning streak. What were they doing for the majority of the season, really? The whole season up until 10 weeks ago, they weren't doing much.
Yeah, they were actually 14th.
Yeah.
Because, we went over it. You have to win more than 50% of your games now.
I think 13 out of 24 is the minimum now to get in the 8.
And they weren't going to win 13. And you think about it, they're on a 10-game winning streak, minus last week, first week of the final. So out of that 13 they needed, 9 of them were in the last 9 rounds. Yeah,
and that also makes you think that, well, if a winning streak can happen that easily, well then the flip side is...
a losing streak can happen too.
Exactly.
So it's 27 games in a round, 27 rounds in a season.
27 rounds, 24 games, 3 buys.
Yeah, so for 2/3 of the season, the Knights had only won 4 games.
And again, that's what, if you're the Newcastle hierarchy, that's what you got to look at.
Yeah, 100%. So if they give him an extension, good on him. As I said, I think he's coach of the year for what he's been able to turn around. Yep. Turnarounds are a massive thing for coaching, but if I was the Knights, I wouldn't be extending him. You want to discuss the judiciary results?
So
this is ridiculous.
Absolutely ridiculous, John. So Jack Whiten, he was found guilty of biting Tyson Gamble and only suspended for 3 games. This suspension was way too soft, John.
I agree.
If you're guilty of biting, you're guilty of biting. A bite is a bite. You can't half bite somebody.
Yeah, it's not reckless, it's not careless, you bit.
Yeah.
A bite is when you close your jaw. And his defence was, I didn't close my jaw, If you leave marks, you bit.
Yeah.
You can bite without leaving marks, but one indicator that you definitely bit somebody is you leave marks.
And only 3 weeks for biting someone. It should have been 10 or 12 weeks, John. This is a game of football. This isn't some freak show where you can just bite somebody and then not suffer any consequences for it.
He also pled not guilty. That's why they had a hearing. So not only did he just get 3 weeks, he got 3 weeks for when he pled not guilty. Normally with an early guilty plea, you get less. If he had to put in an early guilty plea, what would he have gotten? 1 week? 2 weeks? That's...
Unbelievable, isn't it? Unbelievable.
I'm so shocked by this. Like, it's just...
Well, it sets a dangerous precedent, John, because the next player who goes and bites someone can say, well, Jack Whiten only got 3 weeks, so I should only get 3 weeks.
Yeah, with a not guilty plea. And you go back to other suspensions from biting, it's things like that. I think Brad Morin bit somebody and got 8 weeks or 12 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
Why have they gone so soft on...
That was back in 2007, yeah.
Like, why have they gone so... Because... One of the NRLW girls bit someone this year and only got 2 weeks. I didn't know because I don't pay that much attention to NRLW this year, but next year I definitely will be. But on the news stories about Jack Whiten, I saw that one of the girls got suspended for 2 weeks for biting. Same deal. I believe she did an early guilty plea. That's 2 weeks and 3 weeks. How do they go soft on biting?
No. As I said, there's no half biting someone. If you're guilty of biting, it's a 10 or 12 weeks. 10 or 12 week suspension. You can't. They've had an each way bet on this. You can't do it. It's ridiculous.
I don't know if it's superstar power or what, but I just sorry, Jack Whiten. You should have been suspended for at least a third of the year with an early guilty plea.
And I saw last night on TV. I saw there was criticism of Tyson Gamble for making the complaint initially and then deciding not to give evidence, and they were very critical of him. But the issue should be with the process, shouldn't it? I mean, if you've got a beef with Tyson Gamble not following through with the complaint, well, there should have been something in the process that requires whoever makes the initial complaint needs to follow through with more evidence. You can't blame him. What does he care what suspension Jack Whiten gets now? He's getting ready to play in a semi-final against the Warriors.
It makes no difference to him because Jack Whiten's suspension is next year anyway.
And Jack Whiten's going to another team anyway. And why would Tyson Gamble care which team he was at? It's not Tyson Gamble's problem.
Tyson Gamble did the thing that he had to do. He made the official complaint on the field.
Yeah, because he was probably hoping that Whiten would have been sent off. And look, fair enough. That's just playing football. That's part of the game. That's the game within the game.
Well, if someone bites you got to complain about it.
Yeah, he's biting, and he probably looked at it, and at the time Canberra had a good lead, and he probably looked at it and thought, well, here's my chance to get us back in the game. If I can get him sent off, it's up to the referees to make these decisions. It's not, you can't hang this on the players.
No, it's beyond. And look, I heard on the radio yesterday, funny thing, it was... him not testifying shouldn't have any effect on it because murder victims don't testify. You still get punished for murder.
Yeah,
I mean, biting somebody isn't murdering someone.
Yeah,
but the person testifying, it's not a victim. They shouldn't have to do a victim impact statement.
It's up to the judiciary to make their determination based on the evidence in front of them.
Yeah. There's a big bite mark on my arm.
All they can do is look at the evidence. Look at the camera shots of his arm. Look at the action of him biting down on his arm, and they've got to make a decision based on that. That's their job, whether he testifies or not.
Yeah, what's he going to testify? Yeah, he bit me. The end. How did it emotionally affect me?
But I just don't get. Sometimes rugby league, it just infuriates me because people criticise the wrong party. That they go after Tyson Gamble. It's not his problem. If you're not happy, well, blame the NRL, blame the judiciary. Don't blame the player. The player's just trying to get the win for his team. That's his job. He's just doing his job.
Yeah, it's beyond ridiculous. I couldn't believe when I saw 3 weeks. It was one of those ones where I had to refresh and think they had missed one on a typo or something. It should have been 13 weeks. He pled not guilty as well. You're supposed to get a harsher punishment for not guilty.
And we said it on Monday, John. We said, well, either he's not guilty and he gets no weeks, obviously, or he's guilty and he gets 10 to 12.
Yeah.
You can't hedge your bets on a biting incident, John.
Meanwhile,
it's either there's no weeks or 10 to 12.
JWH got 7 weeks for a headbutt and a high tackle. A bite is way worse than both of those things.
Yeah.
Because,
the thing about a high tackle is that's in the act of playing.
Yeah, playing.
A bite is not in the act of playing.
You make a high tackle when you're making a tackle, which is part of the game. You make a bite, There's nothing in the rugby league rules, nothing in the rugby league process, no skill set. No one's at training practicing how to avoid bites.
Forgive my slight ignorance on the subject. Is that what Hannibal Lecter is known for doing?
Yeah, eating people.
Yeah, this is not a Hannibal Lecter show, John.
No.
This is a game of football.
Absolutely ridiculous. I was just so appalled by it. So, that's going to come up funny.
Sorry about that.
Well, we're not criticising Jack Whiten. Jack Whiten bit somebody, he should get suspended. And that's the way also suspension should work. They prevent other people from doing it.
Yeah, it acts as a deterrent. As I said, it sets a dangerous precedent. The next player who's found guilty of biting can say, well, Jack Whiten only got 3 weeks, so I should get a similar suspension.
Yeah, go for an early guilty plea and get 2.
Yeah.
What else happened in the judiciary? No one cares.
I think that's the...
that was the judiciary.
That was the judiciary news. There was some other news around.
There's so much news. You know what? I actually wrote. I gotta go for the other thing after this, and I wrote. Don't worry. This looks like a short podcast we'll have to do because there's only a few games, and then Rugby League did the Rugby League, so we can get. There's so many of them. Another thing about Jack Whiten that's come out, he's considering unretiring from rep football to represent Australia in the whatever it is.
Just so he can serve his suspension in games that he wasn't going to play anyway because he was retired.
Now Mal Meninga, apparently, and there's the rumours that Jack Whiten and Mal Meninga have already spoken. Mal Meninga can name him, and he can serve out his 3 weeks because it's 3 games.
Surely that can't happen. He's retired from rep football. I mean, if he was going to be picked and he hadn't retired from rep football, then you could absolutely argue that the suspension should be served in Test football. But not. He's retired from rep football. That's not happening.
If he unretires, serves his suspension at the end of the year in November, comes back next year for the Rabbitohs, and then retires again and doesn't play State of Origin. And that sets the worst precedent ever. That is actually gaming the system. That is coaches and players exploiting weaknesses in the system that the NRL has to close. If he unretires, the NRL should step in and say, yeah, but you can't unretire till next year. And you're also being suspended for 3 weeks. It's just absolutely...
No, they should just come in and say, look, you're only announcing it now that you've been suspended.
A bit weird, mate.
If you hadn't have been suspended, you wouldn't be announcing it. So, sorry, Jack, it's not happening.
Yeah, no unretirement, mate.
Hungry Jack, I think that's his new nickname.
I heard one this morning, Jack Byton. Jack Whiten's story will never end. I think that's going to be going until early next year. Yeah. But so much more has happened.
Yes, John.
So what do you got? I've got a lot.
So this situation with the Clive Churchill medal at the end of the season. So Peter Sterling was approached to present it. He's knocked it back. I think he's got other plans.
He's going to play golf or something?
Yeah.
He's not going to watch the grand final?
So now it looks like Cliff Lyons is going to present it. But so apparently it's been decided that Rod Churchill, Clive's son, he can't present his dad's medal now just because he made some criticisms of Latrell Mitchell. It's strange to me. I mean, we talked about it at the time, John. We thought he went too far with the criticism, okay? All right, he went a bit too far with criticism. Okay, just move on.
Well, he apologised as well. He said he admitted he went too far.
Why can he now not present his father's medal just because he made some criticism of somebody? How sensitive is everybody now, John?
If you're not allowed to criticise anyone in Rugby League, which seems to be the path we're going, you'll never get any improvement.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yes. And I might add, it wasn't... If his criticism was if it was racist, then absolutely I think they should have made that decision. There wasn't any racism.
His criticism was actually it wasn't unfounded. There was criticism.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think he went too far. He went too far when he called him a cancer, right? Exactly he did go too far, and we said that at the time. It was too far. But that doesn't mean he can't present his father's medal. Yeah, what Clive Churchill's son says has no bearing on the iconic status that Clive Churchill has and always will have in rugby league. it's another example of people just taking things too far. This very sensitive society we live in 2023, John.
This is another unbelievable one. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Everybody was criticising Latrell. That guy took it one step too far.
I criticised him, but
But everybody did. The entire media. That guy, yes, he said, like, too far. He backtracked and apologised.
Yeah.
He's
so you apologise, you move on. That's it, you move on. There's no sanctions, no punishment.
Son of Clive Churchill. And, you know, I would hazard that it's come out because the Rabbitohs said, oh, well, if he's going to present it, we're going to boycott the medal presentation.
But they're not playing. They're not in the grand final. They didn't even make the finals, let alone get anywhere near the grand final.
If it really needs to be resolved, why can't Rod Churchill and Latrell Mitchell sit down, apologise in person, have a fist bump and a coffee, and then we're over it?
So we've got a situation where Clive Churchill's son can't present his dad's medal because a player in a team that didn't even because he criticised a player in a team that didn't even make the finals. What's that about? It's not as if Souths are going to be in the grand final and there might be a bit of awkwardness and he just goes, oh, well, look, I might decide to just get someone else to do it just to avoid that awkwardness. They didn't even make the 8.
Yes, they got knocked out of the 8.
What's going on?
And that was the thing. They didn't make that, and that's why the criticism came. So, yeah, this is just another stupid thing in rugby league.
Oh, yeah, it's a real head scratcher.
It doesn't seem to happen in a lot of other sports, only rugby league.
Oh, dear.
We can move on to Latrell Mitchell. There was some issue with Latrell Mitchell, which in this one I fully support Latrell Mitchell, actually. Mm-hmm. So if you heard about this, a guy rang up a radio station. The radio station asked Latrell's agent, and Latrell's agent said it didn't happen, don't air the story or we'll be doing legal action. They aired the story anyway. I'm not going to mention the radio station's name or the presenter because I don't think they deserve to be mentioned. So somebody said Latrell was at an event and when somebody approached him for some photos, he said, go away. Now, there are other witnesses, other people who were at the event who have since come out in support of Latrell. I've actually been to an event where Latrell Mitchell was there, and that guy is really nice to all of his fans.
Yeah, I'm sure he's a nice person.
And apparently what he said was, and there's even some footage or something like that on the internet, was basically like, can you wait till after the game? Not go away, can you wait till after the game? And yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of photos that have come out from that event where he's spent heaps of time with kids, sat on the hill with a whole group of kids, took heaps of photos. So everyone else in the entire place that was there has said, man, that's just nonsense. And I think because of the criticism of Latrell Mitchell over the course of the year, he's just an easy target now. And some people are just trying to jump on board.
That's the thing. As we're doing here, John, you just need to look at things issue by issue. It's not personal. It's just we just look at each issue and give our assessment of each issue. And on this issue, I'd have to agree. On this issue, there's no problem with what Latrell did.
Yeah, I think it's hard for famous. I understand I've been at. I was at the airport once and I saw Matty Head, who at the time was my favourite player, like all-time favourite player. Yeah. It was when he was at the Tigers. Blah. And I saw him and he was eating something at the thing, and I was like, oh my god, that's Matty Head. To my wife, like, that's Matty Head. That's Matty Head. She was like, go talk to him. And then you know what? I thought, poor guy, he's just coming off a loss. Actually, of course, it's the Tigers. And he was eating, and I just didn't interfere with him. And my wife was like really highly critical of me, like, he's one of your favourite players of all time, you love his kicking, and like, why didn't you go to him? Well, I don't want to bother him, man. If I had have gone, and he had have said to me, man, I'm eating, I'm kind of a bit sad, I just come off a loss, whatever the reason, I accept it and I move on. I don't then go to the radio and go, oh, he told me to go away. Yeah. Just go away. Like, even if he says go away, just go away. Yeah. Because, I understand these people are in the public eye and they have an obligation to their fans, but everybody has bad days.
So I'll be honest, John, I actually wasn't aware of the story until you mentioned it. So did this person ring up a radio station and just air this, say, oh, he told me to go away? Who would go to the effort of ringing a radio station and doing that? Get a life, seriously.
It was one of the things where it was, I've been a Rabbitoh supporter for 54 years.
Even if he did tell you to go away, don't ring up a radio station
just go away.
Just tell your mates at the pub, don't ring a radio station.
Just go away.
Get a life, go away, seriously.
Man. Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. All power to Latrell. He's a great asset to the Indigenous crowd. He's always happy to spend time with kids. All you got to do is look at the internet. Go to Instagram and look at the hashtag Latrell Mitchell thing, and you'll see like thousands and thousands of times he spent time to take photos with fans, kids. You know, he takes a lot of. I know, based on some news stories, that he spends a lot of time with like charities at like junior football events, things like that. And yeah, like apparently all he said was just after the game, mate. So just basically, you know what, after the game, go away until after the game.
Yeah, and don't ring up a radio station and dob him.
Ridiculous, man.
What a dibby dobber.
Yeah, it's like
seriously.
And if you've been a Rabbitohs fan for 54 years and don't want to be a Rabbitohs fan anymore, then don't. Go support the Tigers.
And as if anyone, you ring up a radio station, who cares what that person thinks?
Absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, apparently
couldn't care less.
There was legal threats and stuff like that from Mitchell Pearce's
boo-hoo, seriously.
Absolute stupid story and absolute stupid happening. There's still many, many things to discuss though.
I bet there are.
So Mitchell Pearce has announced his retirement. He was a couple of clubs were targeting him, and he would have been a good get for a few clubs. But
I can think of a few in particular.
Or when Ben Hunt goes. Piercy.
I would have taken him at Canada. At the right price, I would have taken him if he wasn't asking
too. 200,000.
100%.
One more year.
You take him at the right. It's all about the price you pay.
So he would have been perfect
on the salary cap
at the Bulldogs as exactly that player I'm talking about. Premiership winner, has won Origin, is senior, played for Australia, could have come in and set an example. I mean, he had a lot of off-field stuff, but for the past few years as a more aged and mature person, I think, like the Bulldogs, he would have been a perfect get for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, because you look at it now, at the moment they've got Toby Sexton at halfback from the Titans. To be honest, John, he didn't set the world on fire, so, I mean, you know, Pearce is a better option than Toby Sexton. Just as long as you're not paying a big amount of your salary cap to it.
A few $100,000, maybe $200,000-300,000.
I'd take him in a heartbeat.
Come in as a senior player, set an example for the youngers and stuff like that. But yeah, so unfortunately he's going to finish up with those Catalan Dragons. Mitchell Pearce is one of my all-time favourite players. I even got a Facebook memory the other day where GI was on a line break up the side, Mitchell Pearce ran him down. And I was like, just cut his legs out from underneath me. Yes. So that's Mitchell Pearce's retiring at the end of this year.
Yeah, great career. Well done to Mitchell Pearce.
I was so happy when he finally got that Origin win.
Yeah, absolutely. And he did well in playing for Catalans as well. I think it really suited him. The English game over there, plenty of space. There's a lot more players who should do that, I think, John. A lot more players who are suited to that. I know we talked about Kyle Flanagan, and I know you were Nostradamus on that one, John.
Got him.
But I think Kyle Flanagan. I think he would have been better off going to England. I think it could have been the making of him over there. You know, I mean, he's gone and he's under his dad's wing now.
So he'll be well protected.
Yeah, he will be. But I just thought, I mean, Catalans are looking for a halfback now that Pearce is gone. That would have been perfect. Flanagan could have just slotted in there, John.
Well, I think, look, I was only kind of joking when I said Kyle Flanagan should go to the Dragons because the Dragons have young 5'8", young fullback, and youngish hooker. And so you don't want young Kyle Flanagan being their leader. Because we all know Ben Hunt's going. Now it's the Titans. Apparently the Titans are going to get Ben Hunt. They've come out and they've done the Flanagan and Ben Hunt have discussed with each other that Ben Hunt's there for the year and stuff.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Would the Dragons have signed Kyle Flanagan if his dad wasn't the coach?
Absolutely not. I don't think anybody would have. That's the thing. He would have gone to England. And then, you know... It's all good. We'll see what,
Yeah, he might go well.
Yeah,
good luck to him.
Could be the linchpin that makes him go real good. He could Shane Flanagan could be that Wayne Bennett to Jamie Soward to his son. There's more stuff. So one of the things I read, Alexander Volkanovski and Israel Adesanya's manager, Ash Belcastro, he's the UFC, Israel Adesanya.
So this has a rugby league tone to it.
Yeah, so Volkanovski used to play rugby league.
Right.
He played for some lower grade Roosters or Hens or something like that. You can actually see he was a hooker. He was massive, 110 kilos. He's the tiniest little hooker in the world. So that Volkanovski and Adesanya have been helping Mark Zuckerberg train because Mark Zuckerberg's really heavily into combat.
So is this Zuckerberg-Elon Musk fight really going to happen?
No, that's not going to happen.
Okay,
Elon Musk won't do it.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I think that might have topped Mayweather McGregor for the most watched
Everybody
fight
in the
of all
world
time.
will watch that. But
yeah.
So they've been spending time with Mark Zuckerberg, and Ash Belcastro is one of the number one guys who is behind the Bring Back the Bears, North Sydney Bears. And so he's come out now and he said like he's trying to get Mark Zuckerberg to be involved in bringing the North Sydney Bears back. Alexander Volkanovski is apparently a massive North Sydney Bears fan as a kid as well.
Yeah, right, wow.
So imagine Mark Zuckerberg getting involved in an Australian Rugby League team.
Yeah,
they would become the force of the world. Like,
that would be huge.
It's all just conjecture right now because Ash Belcastro.
Forget Russell Crowe owning the Rabbitohs, James Packer owning the Rabbitohs, and that Mike Cannon Brooks.
Just imagine what they would do.
Mark Zuckerberg.
And he just has trillions of dollars. So he can invest in new facilities and everything. It'd just be cool. I just wanted to bring it up because it'd be cool.
Yeah, absolutely it would. And we can probably dare to dream a bit on that one, I reckon.
I hope so. So I fully support your initiative, Ash Belcastro. Get Mark Zuckerberg. That's pretty much all I've got for Rugby League.
Yeah, I think that might be. I think we've gone into it in great detail there, Joel.
Yeah, 'cause as I said, I thought it would be a quick one with the Rugby League. 2 games, nothing.
Yeah. There's always something. Always something.
I just want to mention, but I don't want to talk about it. Is Valentine Holmes is he's just done something completely stupid. I don't want to talk too much about it, but yeah, he's obviously posted an idiotic social media post that's caused great issues across the league.
Yeah.
Integrity Unit investigating, and we'll see what happens. But man, people who aren't famous people don't post photos like that on social media.
It just requires a bit of common sense.
Yeah.
Like they say, common sense isn't very common, is it?
No. So yeah, there's also that. We got to bring up everything, but we don't have to talk about everything.
Yeah.
So let's move to the AFL.
Yeah, sure.
Where there is no news because AFL.
I mean, there is a little bit of tribunal news, but we will get to that after we go into this first game, John.
All there ever is in the AFL is new previews and tribunal news, and hey, everybody was really good this week.
Yeah.
So Demons and Carlton are on Friday.
Friday, 7:50 p.m. at the MCG. John, the winner plays the Brisbane Lions.
Yeah, so Melbourne are currently the favourite and have been the favourite the whole week. They started the week at $1.71 with PointsBet and are now $1.71 with Betfair. Once again, Betfair has the best odds on AFL. They always seem to.
Yeah.
Make sure you gamble responsibly. Carlton started the week at $2.25 with Bluebet and now blown out to $2.36 with Betfair. I don't see it going any other way than the Demons beating Carlton, but maybe you've got something.
Yeah, well, I've got some stats for you on the Demons, John. I guess the issue for Melbourne at the moment, they're struggling to convert opportunities up forward. They had 32 more inside 50s than Collingwood in that game last weekend, and they still got beaten. The last time a team had that many more inside 50s than their opponent in a finals game and lost was Geelong back in the 2016 preliminary final against Sydney. So that's going back a way, John. The Cats had 32, the same number, more inside 50s than the Swans that day and got beaten. But the Demons are one of the best defensive teams in the comp, and they need to be, given those struggles up forward. Their leading goal kicker, Bailey Fritsch, he was a bit off against Collingwood. He kicked just 2 goals too. He's had foot problems in recent times. So that means their star midfielder, Christian Petrarca, he might need to go up forward. Johnny might need to venture down there to help the Demons with this real struggle they're having up forward with finding the goal. In terms of Carlton, John, that they won the contested ball by 10.1 per game during the home and away rounds. That's number 1 in the AFL. And they were much better than Sydney in this area in the first final with 25 more contested possessions, or winning the contested ball 25 more times. But the Demons got the better of them in that area in their 2 games in round 12 and round 22. So it's been an issue for other teams against Carlton, but not for Melbourne. It's going to be a big night for Blues ruckman Mark Pittenay. He goes head-to-head with Melbourne's Max Gawn, of course. He had a great game against Collingwood with 27 disposals. and 10 clearances. So Pitane is going to need to be at his best in that one, John.
It can be a close game. It can be a close game. But I think Melbourne will get it. You got both of these teams were the ones last week where the match was a smashing and then it was dragged back into a close match.
Yeah.
So if Melbourne come out, you got to think if Melbourne come out poorly again, Carlton has shown last week that they can hold on to a lead no matter how dangerous it gets because Swans were catching up.
Yeah, look
whereas Melbourne have shown, even if they're getting dominated, they can come back. But Melbourne did finish higher. They have shown better form, and they are probably they've played the Pies. The Pies were back into form.
Yeah, I mean, as I alluded to before, John, 32 more inside 50s than Collingwood. So they deliver. There's no issue with their delivery. It's just finishing it off.
Yeah.
Down in goal. So if they polish off their finishing up forward, they should win this game quite comfortably, John. I think if they can get that close to Collingwood, then you'd have to think they're going to have a bit too much for Carlton. I would have thought.
I think it'll come down to the first quarter. To be honest, what'll happen in the first quarter will determine the outcome of the game. Because, like I said, if Melbourne get down, they've shown they can come back. If Carlton get up, they've shown they can hold the lead. And if it's close, then I think Melbourne will get it. So if Carlton get up, I think they'll hold the lead. If Melbourne get down, it'll be a close game at the end of the end of the match. But I still think Melbourne's just going to win this one. I think the odds don't tell a big story because there's only a 50-cent difference. But I just think that Melbourne, like you said, they were in that game with the Pies. And although the Pies limped into the finals.
They gave them a big scare. Collingwood only won by 7 points, I think. So
although they limped into the finals, their players are back, their captain is back. He had form. So I think Melbourne will get Pip Carlton on this one. Sorry, Carlton's fans, but they've done well for the year. So
they have
no complaints. They made it to the second round.
Melbourne will be without Angus Brayshaw though, John, because of that
Don't
hit,
watch the footage.
That hit from Braden Maynard on Angus Brayshaw that left Brayshaw concussed. The Collingwood defender, Braden Maynard, Melbourne's Angus Brayshaw, of course. Maynard jumped up in the air. He attempted to smother Brayshaw's kick, and as Maynard came down, he made contact with Brayshaw's head. How do you see that one, John? You've seen the incident.
Yeah, so
what are your thoughts on
the footage looked horrible. And look, I don't want to get... I think the outcome of the judiciary was fair, to be honest. But it depends on the rules, okay? Because...
Yeah, so what we got to be... I think we got to be careful of is... Just because somebody's... And, I'm sorry that Angus Brayshaw's had this extensive...
Horrible. Don't watch it.
And don't watch it. And he's had an extensive history of concussion. And, of course, we wish him well. We wish his family well. We hope that this doesn't cause any issues for him later in life. Of course, we hope for that, like we hope for any former footballer of any code doesn't have these issues later on in life. But we've got to be careful of, just because someone gets concussed, that we punish the person who made contact with them, the player who made contact with them. We've got to be very careful of that.
100%. It's a contact sport. Okay, and accidents happen.
And it was an in-game act, as we talked about with the biting before, not an in-game act.
Yes.
This was absolutely an in-game act. He went up to smother a kick, which happens multiple times a game in the AFL.
So there was the people on the internet and some reporters and things like that who were on the opposite side and said he should have got suspended. That mentioned the fact that he rotated so his shoulder was leading in the coming down. This is like a... It's like I said, I don't want to get too controversial or whatever, but that's not something you should be looking at, because the reason he's rotating his shoulder is he doesn't want to hurt himself. Yes, he's trying to protect the player. He didn't mean to hit the head, and it depends on the rules. Rugby League has reckless, careless, so on and so forth. You are just not allowed to hit them in the head. Yeah. Okay? Look, I do a combat sport, and I coach a combat sport, and... There's a famous case in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu that just happened where somebody was accidentally paralyzed and they were paid out $46 million by the insurance companies. When you watch that footage, you can see that it is just a freak accident. It's just unfortunate. The poor guy got, paralyzed. And he's like doing a lot better now and stuff like that. But it was from a move that happens all the time, and it was just a freak accident. And that's, in my opinion, and only my opinion, that's what happened here. You see Smothers all the time. You see people like clash into Smothers, and unfortunately, Braden Maynard's shoulder hit Brayshaw's head and knocked him unconscious.
Yeah,
and a freak accident.
And so there were 2 charges that Maynard was contesting at the tribunal. He's found not guilty of rough conduct and not guilty of careless conduct. So, obviously the tribunal panel have looked at it and they've made their determination, and...
He wasn't being careless because he was doing something that they do every game. Yeah. And he just unfortunately hit the head. Accidental. It was an accident, which makes it kind of careless.
In a contact sport, you're always going to have these incidents. There's no avoiding this. More players are going to be concussed, unfortunately, playing these sports.
There are things that happen especially in contact sports, in which people get devastating injuries. Like, I remember Preston Campbell blowing his knee out on a step. That guy stepped probably 250,000 times in his career. And there was just 1 year where he stepped to dodge around another player, and his knee blew out. Yeah. No one was touching him, and that's the example of it's just a freak accident that sometimes happens, and you just have to live with it and roll with it, and that's part of playing the game.
And look, it is terrible that Brayshaw has had this extensive concussion.
And he was unconscious for 2 minutes, which is really serious.
Yeah, very serious, and and he does wear that protective helmet. But I'm sorry to say this, John, but maybe he's going to have to consider whether he should continue in the sport, because he's got to ask himself, is it worth it? Is it worth risking his long-term... And I'm no doctor, but is it worth risking his potential future health by continuing in the sport? He's going to have to sit down probably over the off-season and weigh that up. I know, you never like to see somebody retire under these circumstances, but later life is more important than a football career, John.
You have to look at it, in Rugby League, you had Jake Friend, what's his name, Cordner? Boyd
Cordner,
both retire from concussions, because they felt like they'd had too many concussions, and that's it. And I get 2 minutes unconscious is really scary for everyone. The person it happens to, the people watching, the family and everything like that. But it's just a freak accident, man. It's really unfortunate and really sad. And like I said, don't watch it. Nobody should watch it. It's horrifying. It looks so scary. But it's not Braden Maynard's fault.
Yeah, and there's every possibility... Had that been another player who didn't have the same susceptibility to concussion, and if that player had just got up and played on, Braden Maynard, in all likelihood, doesn't get charged.
Yep, exactly.
And we're not having this conversation.
Exactly, and that's why I think it was fair that he got off. Because it was just an unfortunate freak accident against how many players are on a field in AFL?
18 on the field.
I was going to say 17, but it's 18. Yeah.
18.
So the 18 opposing players on the field, unfortunately, he just managed to hit that one guy that you don't want to hit. And if you are that one guy that you don't want to hit, perhaps you shouldn't.
Of course, we wish Angus Brayshaw well, and we hope that he's okay. We hope that he makes a full recovery. We hope that he doesn't have any long-term health issues.
Yeah, absolutely. We can move on to the Port.
The next game,
GWS. Yep. Port is favourites. They started the week with SmartBet at $1.60 and have gone out to $1.67, so a slight increase there. Again, best bet odds with Betfair. GWS started the week at $2.46 with Betfair and have gone out slightly to $2.48.
Yeah.
How do you see this one? GWS is one of the form teams of the comp.
Yeah, as always, John, it is trickier with these AFL previews because they don't name their teams until Thursday night. We're doing this match preview on a Thursday morning. It is easier doing the NRL previews because the teams are named on Tuesdays, obviously. But I do have some stats for you on this one, John. Awesome. So Port Adelaide has won the last 3 games between these two, and they haven't just won them either, John. The average margin in those 3 wins is 44 points too. So recent reading doesn't look too good for GWS. Both these teams have won 3 of their last 5 games. So in terms of some stats, particularly for GWS, their forward Toby Green has 61 goals this season. He's averaging 2.8 goals a game. Green also has 181 score involvements this season, averaging 8.2 score involvements a game. While also for GWS, midfielder Tom Green, different spelling to Toby, no relation, has 298 contested possessions this season at 14.9 a game. For Port Adelaide, midfielder Zach Butters has 662 disposals this season, averaging 27.6 a game. That's very handy. Port defender Dan Houston has 137 marks this season, averaging 5.7 a game as well there, John.
Yeah.
So there's some stats for you.
Look, the odds aren't really giving GWS a chance, but I'm in a mad bias right now where I'm going to give GWS the chance. If GWS wins, I'm going to go get me a GWS jersey over the weekend. My sister and my whole family will be very angry with me because they're mad Sydney Swans fans, but I'm a bandwagon supporter. So I jump on them all. But I really hope GWS can win this one. It'd be great to have Roosters and GWS win this week.
Yeah, I'm sorry to rain on your parade there, John. I think Port Adelaide will get it done at home.
Head says Port, heart says GWS.
Yeah. Just the home ground advantage is so big, especially for these interstate teams in the AFL. I can't go past Port at home, John. I can't do it.
I really, really hope that the GWS can come. They've been in form for a long time. Back into the season form, and they did give away a smashing last week.
Still looking for that first premiership. GWS Port Adelaide haven't won one since 2004. They ended Brisbane's three-peat there at the start of the century, John.
I hope GWS can win, but as I said, head says Port, heart says GWS.
Be interesting. We'll see what happens.
That's about it for the AFL. As normal, there's not very much news because these guys are really good. I don't know.
Yeah.
If there's one thing that the AFL
it's always just on-field news with the AFL. There's never off-field news.
One thing they do better, it's their players are way better
behaved. Yeah.
That's what the NRL should really be concentrating on, I think.
Yeah, I think. How long's a piece of string, John?
I just want to do a quick basketball correction because even though I wrote it down, I misspoke in the last podcast. USA came fourth in the Basketball World Cup. And the reason I actually want to bring it up to correct it is it's a really big news because, as I discussed multiple times, as we talked about, it was like a third string team. They still should have won. So now the superstars of the USA are really up in arms about the embarrassment that has happened to them because they're the USA.
Yeah.
So guys like LeBron James and Steph Curry are already organising the Olympic team.
Oh, right.
And I think what you're going to see in the Olympics is USA smash through everyone because it is going to be LeBron James leading the...
That's what we want to see. So is that being brought on by this underwhelming performance at the World Cup?
Yeah, it's LeBron James called it embarrassing.
There's an upside to everything, isn't there, John?
Yeah, so it's going to be
if that lackluster performance at the World Cup by the USA has led to this, it's almost like a little coup or something that's being started by LeBron James and Steph Curry. If that leads to them picking their best team, then that's great. That's great for everybody. That's what everybody wants to see. Again, you're the basketball man here.
It'll be
I'm
awesome.
not. As an outsider, that's what I'd want to see more than anything.
The problem I have with it, right, is because we're going to get to rugby union a bit later. The problem I'm going to have with it is the odds are going to be ridiculous for all the matches. I think we have an issue with odds on SmartB at the moment for the rugby union, so don't pay attention to the rugby union odds. But the odds are going to be ridiculous because when USA plays their best team against the rest of the world, there's nobody that is even close. Not even close. So you're going to see a whole bunch of blowouts. It'll be awesome to watch.
You know what, we want to see it though. I want to see it.
It'll be awesome to watch.
I want to see LeBron James and Steph Curry lead the USA to a 70-point win over Lithuania or something.
It's going to be awesome to watch, but it's going to be every game. It's going to be something. It'll be things like that 100-point wins and things like that over even. Like if Canada.
Sorry, I was going a bit short saying 70-point win. It's more like 100.
But they'll do it to Canada as well. They'll do it to the World Champions.
Probably do it to Australia.
They'll definitely do it to Australia.
Yeah.
So it'll be like you'll be watching something like something that historically it'll be one of those things like, where were you when America scored 100 points more than their opposing teams in every game of the Olympics? So we'll see what happens there, but hopefully actually, like, I'm a little bit on the fence. I hope it does happen because I want to see it, but I also hope it doesn't happen because I don't want to see it. Then we can talk about, what's next on my run sheet? Cricket!
Cricket, yeah.
Everybody loves cricket. Nobody understands cricket.
Do you want me to talk a bit about this South Africa-Australia ODI?
Yes, this is an interesting outcome.
Yeah, so South Africa won the third ODI against Australia by 111 runs on Tuesday night / Wednesday morning.
That's quite a big win, I think, for the two teams.
Very big. So South Africa made 6 for 338 from their 50 overs. Aidan Markram made 102 not out off 74 balls, blasting 4 sixes in that knock, John. In reply, David Warner top scored for the Aussies with 78 from 56 balls. He hit 3 sixes. Warner was the only Aussie batsman to make a decent score, John. He's running into some good form going into that World Cup.
I think this will be his last year, right?
So that's an upside for Australia. Even though they got beaten in that game, David Warner continues to fire, John. Unfortunately, that innings from Warner wasn't enough for the Aussies. They were bowled out for 227 in just 34.3 overs. You've really got to be batting out the 50 overs in these ODIs. John. Getting rolled in 34 overs isn't good enough. So Game 4 is tomorrow night, meaning Friday night, our time, at Super Sport Park at Centurion. It's a 5-game ODI series, and Australia leads the series 2-1 going into that 4th game.
Yeah, I expected them to win the third test, third ODI. So it's good that they actually South Africa was able to stand up and win.
Yeah, well, that's what you sort of want to see that too. I mean, Australia need it too. They need competitive hitouts going into the World Cup. Even if South Africa were to come back and win this series, who cares? It doesn't matter. No one cares. This is all about Australia getting a good hit out ahead of the World Cup. And if South Africa can provide that for them, well, that's a good thing.
It's good for South Africa too because it makes the World Cup a little bit more competitive. I said a few weeks ago, I think India will win the World Cup simply because in India and there's nothing like an Indian crowd. They would be up. So, there was the fear that the fear for Indian fans that Pakistan would be able to beat India, and in the Asia Cup, Pakistan was dominating India in their match earlier a couple of weeks ago that got rained out. They ended up having their rematch, and India smashed Pakistan by 228 runs. Smashed them. Absolutely demolished them. And it puts Pakistan now 3rd. So Pakistan is in danger of missing the final.
There you go.
It's going to be...
So sorry, I haven't been keeping up with the Asia Cup, but... So sorry, who's in line to play the final?
Now it's India and Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, because it's the
that's a surprise
group of 4, and so whoever finishes that round robin tournament as the first 2, they'll play the final. So Pakistan and Sri Lanka actually play tonight.
Right. Okay.
Pakistan is of course well ahead in the odds, $1.59 with Betfair, and Sri Lanka's at 266. But it'll be an interesting match because whoever wins will then play India in the final.
Well, that's the thing. In Pakistan, they're very inconsistent, aren't they? They can come out and beat the best team in the world on their day. They can also come out and lose to a minnow nation just as easily. So that's always been the issue for Pakistan, is there's too big a gap between their best cricket and their worst cricket. I noticed, John, looking ahead to the World Cup, that the format is actually that everyone plays against everyone else.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. That's something different.
It's going to be a really interesting tournament.
I like it though, because that means we're going to see India play Pakistan, and that's going to be huge.
I really wonder how that's going to work out, because India wouldn't cross into Pakistan to play during the Asia Cup. Is Pakistan going to go to India?
I'll tell you what, John, I'm going to be tuning in, and that's a good thing for world cricket, right?
So that's it, because it's in India. It means it's 4 or 5 hours behind us. So the matches should start at around 2 p.m, 3 p.m. our time.
Much better time slot than the Rugby World Cup in France, which we'll get to.
So everybody if you like cricket, actually that match tonight, Pakistan versus Sri Lanka, is actually a big match in the world of cricket. So we want to go to I've lost all my pages.
I think you were going to do, after the Crete, you were going to do a bit of UFC, and then we were going to finish with the rugby. Yeah, we'll finish the rugby.
Yeah. So, Alex Grasso, who is 16-3, is doing a rematch with Valentina Shevchenko this weekend. Because Valentina Shevchenko is probably... she'd be up there out of the women's fighters in the greatest of all time. She had 7 title defences, which no other woman is able to do in a single division. Amanda Nunes had like 45, but it was across multiple divisions.
Yeah.
But the thing was, Grasso was going toe-to-toe with Shevchenko during their match. It was very, very even. A lot of people will say, well, Valentina will always say she was piecing Alex Grasso up, but... you know, as a non-biased person in watching it, I thought it was really even and hard to call. And then Grasso managed to take Shevchenko's back off Shevchenko's signature move. Shevchenko does this spinning back kick that is devastating to the stomach. And Grasso stepped around and took it back and
I wouldn't want to be on the end of one of those.
It's devastating. Shevchenko's kicks are ridiculous. If you want to look up, if you love watching people get knocked out in combat sports, watch up Shevchenko knocking out, I think it was Jessica I. Hey, kick to the head and it just... she's a scary woman, Valentina Shevchenko.
I'll bet.
So Shevchenko has actually looked a little bit off in her last few matches because I think what's happened is the division was a little bit too easy for her and she didn't train as hard. And then because the division was open basically for her, her opponents started to get better and better. That happens in every division, you know. Like when Ronda Rousey came onto the scene, her division was too easy. She got 6 title defenses in a row, or 6 titles wins in a row, and then the division got better. And that's what's happened here in the flyweight division. I don't know what adjustments Grasso can make because she won. And obviously Shevchenko is one of the best combat sports people of all time, so she's going to make some adjustments and probably not throw up that spinning back kick as much. I don't know. It's going to be a really good fight, though.
Yeah.
Also on the card is Jack Della Maddalena, who is an Australian.
Yeah. Kevin Holland.
Yeah, he's going to be fighting versus Kevin Holland, right? So Kevin Holland's nickname is Big Mouth. He's always a good watch. He does stuff like talks.
Does he gives those entertaining press conferences?
Well, he does it during the match.
Oh, right.
During the fight.
Okay.
He in one of his matches once he asked the opposing fighter to stop hitting him so hard.
I love it. I love the theatre around the UFC.
Yeah, great. So Kevin Holland is like a fan favourite. He in 2020 during the COVID times, he fought 5 times in 1 year. He's just willing to fight anyone, anytime. He got that 5-fight win streak, and then since then he's been a bit up and down. He's not the best wrestler, but he's a jiu-jitsu black belt. Whereas Jack Della is a monster in the stand-up. So he's 15-2, and he's currently on a 13-fight win streak. So he lost his 2 initial fights. It was a different weight class, and now he's gone up to welterweight. And that's going to be a really good one. It's 13th versus 14th in the rankings. There won't be much ranking movement, but it does give... Jack Della is like a star on the rise, so it's another good watch.
With the rankings in the UFC, is it... Is it sort of... Because in some ranking systems, I think we talked about the women's soccer, it's hard to get the rankings to move around. I know golf's the same, it's hard for the rankings to move. Tennis, it's a bit easier. What in terms of the UFC rankings, do they move around
they
quickly?
Just make it up.
Oh, they just make it up?
Like, I'm sure they have an explanation, but it's clearly just made up.
Right,
the pound for pound is decided by the media, media votes. So if Jack Della wins, logic would dictate, because he's 14th and Kevin Holland is 13th, logic would dictate that Jack Della goes up to 13th and Kevin Holland drops to 14th. It could be that Jack Della jumps to 6th. It's seemingly random. I swear to God, they just make it up. Because the UFC is it's a dictatorship, you know? It's not a thing with like a board and stuff like that.
But you know what? Sometimes that works, doesn't it?
Man.
Because they just make a decision and get on with it. There's none of these sort of meaningless meetings and consultations, and they just make a decision and get on with it. I like it.
It's great because it gives you a lot to talk about as a fan as well.
Yeah.
Because, you know, often we'll have these conversations about, how is this guy 5th? 1 week ago he was 14th. Like, it's just nonsense. And, you know, you have awesome stories like Jiri Prohaska, who fought twice in the UFC. but had such a big following prior to the UFC, and such a big, there was a massive beat up about him. Came in, he fought twice in the UFC and then fought for the title. Like, he just fought 2 contenders and then went straight for the title, dominated everyone, then unfortunately got injured and had to... He vacated his title, but he's coming back this year. So you have all these things that can happen, actually, in the UFC because it's a dictatorship. Like, in a less of
I'm all for it.
Yeah, it's really fun. So, I don't know what will happen after the weekend with Jack Della. I hope he moves up because, another Aussie champion would be great.
Absolutely.
There is one other fight that to follow, which is Paul Rojas Jr.
Yeah.
So he's an interesting case because he actually debuted when he was 17 on Dana White's Contender Series. There was a whole big thing about he shouldn't have a 17-year-old doing combat sport.
that's an interesting line that's crossing there, John.
Yeah, so he's only ever lost one fight. That's the thing. So that's
very impressive.
In the minors, he was just piecing up everyone. And then he lost his last fight by split decision. I'm totally going to be wrong about that. But he's come back now. He's supposed to have made some adjustments. He's 18 now, but he's had 3 fights in the UFC.
Oh, he's 18 now. Well, that's fine. That's fine.
But he debuted when he was 17.
Yeah.
But he's one to watch for the future. He was going to be like the undefeated Khabib 29-0, but then lost his last fight, which was, a wake-up call. Now he's got to go out and actually take it all seriously. So it's a good card. It is on at a normal time as well. It's not a pay-per-view, so it's just on KO or UFC Fight Pass.
You're going to watch it, of course?
100%.
Yeah,
I was going to be refereeing on Sunday, but unfortunately that event got postponed. So fortunately, I'll be at home watching UFC and playing video games.
There you go.
And the finals.
Yeah. There's no shortage of TV options on the couch this weekend, John.
So we can get into the Rugby Union World Cup now.
Yep.
Sorry, I've just refreshed and all my odds are fixed on SmartB. I think it might have been an issue with my...
Yeah, right. Do you want me to take you through a bit of info on a couple of Rugby World Cup? Or we'll start with Australia, Fiji. Kick-offs 1:45am on Monday, Australian Eastern Time. Fiji went down 32-26 in a gallant showing against Wales, John. A semi-Radradra mistake cost them a chance of victory in overtime. He dropped the ball. If he had scored and they kicked the goal, they snatched the win there, John. So very close. They could easily have won that one against Wales. The consensus with Pool C, John, was that Australia would win the pool and the outcome of the Fiji-Wales game would decide the other team to go through to the quarters in Pool C. So that's sort of something to think about. Australia, of course, beat Georgia 35-15 in their first game. So it's the second hit out for the Wallabies this one.
Fiji are in good form. As we discussed before, they beat England in their warm-up game and, almost beat Wales. It's not... I don't think this is a gimme. Look, Australia's currently paying $1.34 with TAB, and Fiji's paying $3.75 with SportsBet. Odds have been the same all week. Everybody expects Australia to win. But, I think Fiji's in a bit of good form and can give them a push.
And it's must win for Fiji. If they drop this game, well, it's all over for them because, Australia's... Well, we hope against hope, John, Australia don't lose to any of the other teams in Pool C. And it's hard to see Wales losing to the other teams in Pool C as well. It's must win for Fiji. So the Wallabies are going to have to be on guard, John. Like you said, it's not a gimme. You got to watch out.
Yeah, it's it's maybe worth putting a sneaky on a line bet with Fiji because it could be close. There's no reason why Fiji should win, to be honest.
Well, put it this way, if the Wallabies lose, it'll be catastrophic.
Yeah. Well, that'll surely be the end of Eddie Jones for the Wallabies coach at the end of this.
You'd have to think he's got to get into the quarters at least, John.
If
catastrophe strikes and the Wallabies don't make the quarters, Eddie's going to be in all sorts of trouble.
And they did win last week for their first match in 6 games with Eddie, and they didn't, like we discussed, they didn't look the best, but they still put 20 more points on.
Yeah, so the top 2 teams in each pool go through to the quarters. So there's no round of 16. You make the top 2, you're straight into the quarters.
I'd love to see Fiji do it, to be honest. It'd be really good for Fiji to get into the quarters. But,
it would.
It's most likely going to be Wales.
Yeah, given that Wales have won that, like you say, John, that Wales-Fiji game, I think, will decide second spot, and Wales will take second spot there in Pool C.
So, We can just touch on New Zealand.
Yeah, New Zealand, Namibia. Yeah, so
odds are cracker. I think everybody should put $10 on bet the house on Namibia. Currently paying $111.
Gamble responsibly.
This is not responsible.
Bet with your head, not over it. I think that really does apply to this game.
Yeah, New Zealand though.
How crazy that New Zealand are
paying $1.
$1. When does that ever happen? So go and bet on New Zealand and then just get your money back after they win.
I think they shouldn't even allow bets.
It should just be suspended betting, shouldn't it?
France actually is currently the same. So let me just go through some of the odds right now for the World Cup, because every World Cup has teams that are there making up the numbers. But in rugby union, I always found it's too far. So they're going to open the round this week with France versus Uruguay. France is paying $1, Uruguay is paying $111. So these are at different bookmakers and stuff like that. You can find the best odds on smartb.com.au if you're really stupid enough to bet on Uruguay. Don't be that stupid. Bet with your head not over it.
Yes.
Samoa's paying $1.02 against Chile's $51. Wales $1 against Portugal's $34. Ireland's $1 versus Tonga's $36. This is an even one. Australia $1.34 versus Fiji's $3.75.
It's a lot closer than most games here, John.
And then England $1.07 versus Japan's $18. There is only one game in this whole week
where there's any sort of closeness in the odds.
Yeah, and it's still, $1.34 to $3.75 is not close. It's still...
it's relative, right?
Yeah.
Compared to the other prices, it's close.
When you're looking at $1 to $111.
Yeah. I don't know about you, John, but I wouldn't want to be coming up against the All Blacks after that loss to France.
I'm surprised Namibia isn't paying more.
Yeah, well, interestingly, John, New Zealand holds the record for the biggest score in a Rugby World Cup match, 145-17 over Japan back in 1995.
Yeah.
Are they any chance of breaking that record in this game?
I think so. In that New Zealand versus Japan game, one of my girlfriends started crying.
Oh, really?
It was just so sad to see the Japanese rugby players get that dominated. I remember it very clearly when I was young. We were watching it, and she just started crying. She was like, "This is so unfair." And I feel like if she was watching this match that's going to happen, when is it? Tomorrow?
5 a.m. Saturday, John.
Saturday. She's going to be crying again, because this is going to be an absolute mauling. No way you would ever want to be, out of all of the teams in the competition, you would ever want to be in Namibia going up against New Zealand coming off an upset loss.
Yeah, and you just look at a result like that, 145-17 over Japan back in 1995, and you just sort of go, look, does this really help anybody? It doesn't help the team that wins. It does nothing for them. It does nothing for the team that gets beaten. Those sort of results just tell you that there's just too many nations in the World Cup. And you look at a nation like Namibia going up against the All Blacks. Should the World Cup really have this many teams in it, John? You've really got to ask yourself that question.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I think we talked about it once before, where it feels like it's better to just cut it back. Yes, you want to be a world game, and yes, rugby union is played in a lot of countries. It doesn't mean every country is going to be competitive. And you just look at those odds for across the round. I don't know if they call it a round.
Your sport, it just loses credibility when you have too many one-sided results. So that's what they've got to ask themselves. Do we really, I guess, having all these countries in it comes at a cost. The cost is that a lot of them are going to get beaten up on.
Yeah. And they're not going to get anything out of it. Like you said, they're not going to get anything out of it. You may as well chuck in the New Zealand under-18s or something, and then they can play against New Zealand. Yeah. They're not going to get anything out. If you put people against teams in sports, if you put teams against teams that are too much of a difference, the team that gets smashed gets literally nothing out of it. And the team that does the smashing also gets literally nothing out of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a cash grab. They just want more games so they can show more on TV and earn more money with the broadcast deal.
Exactly. Just to reduce the number of games and make the game a better spectacle.
Yeah, quality over quantity, right?
Like my brother always says, it's not a race, it's a beauty contest.
Yeah, exactly.
So look good, don't worry about finishing first. One of the other things that came out this week in rugby union, which I wanted to get your opinion on, is Australian rugby is currently chasing Angus Crichton.
Right.
Now, the numbers haven't come out. It's no $5 million Suwali deal, but it's in the millions of dollars. Like, I've seen like 1.4, 2.2, that kind of thing. This is beyond ridiculous as well. Like, we just talked about it a few weeks ago. Rugby Union doesn't have the biggest TV deal. They're not funding their female team, and we know what female women's leagues can do. And instead, they're chasing rugby league players to try and build the status of their game and do what?
This is a problem with rugby union, and it's always been the problem. And we saw it with the Joseph Suwali signing. They don't sign players for the right reasons. They don't sign players because they're looking at the Wallabies team going, oh, what areas are we deficient in? We need to recruit this player to fill this gap or this player to fill this gap. They don't look at it that way. They go, we need to sign NRL players to get publicity for our sport, which really has trouble attracting any sort of publicity. So the Wallabies team is starting to become a marketing exercise rather than a rugby union team.
I don't think that is going to help. Angus
that's the thing. Again,
even from a marketing perspective,
John, we're not pretending to be the biggest rugby union experts in the world. I'm not the most knowledgeable person on rugby union. I put my hand up. I own up to that.
Like I said, I watch it just because the rugby league's not on.
Yeah. Well, that's right. So you need to look at it. You need to go, well, do the Wallabies need? I guess someone like Angus Crichton. Would I guess he'd probably play as a flanker in rugby union. He'd be an edge back.
Apparently he was an under-19 schoolboys representative at something.
Would he be quick enough to play in the centres in rugby? I don't know if he'd be quick enough to do that. He's certainly got the size for it. But I don't know if he'd be quick enough to be in the back. So I'm guessing he'd probably be a flanker. He'd be on the edge of the scrum in rugby. Again, I don't know if the Wallabies need forwards. Do they need back rowers? Or is this, like the Suwali signing was, is this just another chase for publicity? One or two rugby league signings here or there are not going to change the hole that rugby union's in.
No,
it's a Band-Aid solution.
You're not going to gain new fans when Angus Crichton moves. You're not going to gain new fans, people following Angus Crichton or Joseph Suwali. Like when Mark Gasnier went to Toulouse or whatever it was, Toulon, I can't remember, the French rugby.
Yeah.
Mark Gasnier at that time was like my hero. I've got like a Mark Gasnier jersey. I have the dumbest photo in the history of the world when I met him the first time where I'm so nervous. So it was seriously, I love the guy. I didn't go and watch rugby union because he was in it. Yeah,
that's right.
No spectators. Maybe there are some, but got to generalise. No spectators are going to follow Angus Crichton to Australian rugby.
Yeah.
Australian rugby fans will appreciate the fact that he's a good player because he is a good player, but it's just such a weird thing. Take that money and fund your own players, fund the women's game, get better marketing, work harder on your own backyard, and then you don't need rugby. They should be doing is wanting rugby league players to be approaching rugby union and saying, I want to go play rugby union because the quality of the game is good and there's more star power and I can get more money. What they have right now is, I'm going to go and try and poach some rugby league players because maybe that will give me some more fans. I don't know. It just seems so bizarre.
They really need to change their mindset. They need to think, well, how do we make the Australian Super Rugby franchises stronger? How do we make the Waratahs stronger? How do we make the Queensland Reds stronger? How do we make the Brumbies stronger? How do we make the Western Force stronger? How do we make the Melbourne Rebels stronger? How do we make the Wallabies stronger? That's how they need to think. That's where their mindset needs to be, not these Band-Aid publicity grabs of signing people like Suwali and Angus Crichton. That's how they need to be thinking. John, back in about 2003, Andrew John seriously considered joining rugby union. He was a serious consideration back then. In 2023, do you think Nathan Cleary's thinking about going to rugby union? He's not thinking like that, John. It's the last thing on his mind. Rugby union is just not an attractive proposition at the moment. They need to really get their house in order first. And at least back then, someone like Andrew Johns was looking at rugby going, geez, I want to play rugby. They need to get back to that. They need to get into a situation where Nathan Cleary's going, oh, geez, I want to play for the
Exactly.
Wallabies. That's the furthest thing from Nathan Cleary's mind right now.
So you have Kiwi players in Rugby League who want to go and play for the All Blacks. They're going the other way. It's not the All Blacks are approaching Rugby League players and saying, hey, come and play for us, we'll pay you overs.
Yeah.
It's Kiwi players, like, Sonny Bill is obviously the most famous. He went to Rugby Union for the challenge because the quality of competition is good, the money is good, and the stature is good, the legacy is good. The Australian rugby needs to create that. People don't follow Rugby League because the Australian Rugby League team is good. They follow Rugby League because the competition is good.
Yeah.
Same with AFL, same with netball, same with all. They don't
Yeah.
follow Rugby Union because Rugby Union bought Joseph Sawali. I don't think anyone's going to care next year that Ray Joseph Sawali's there, to be honest.
Joseph Sawali and Angus Crichton are not going to solve the world's problems for Rugby Union, John. Their problems run a lot deeper than that. And that they need to address the core problems with rugby, which we've outlined, before they go taking these publicity grabs, signing these NRL players.
You look at it, just starts from the TV deal. There's a reason why television is going to pay $2 billion for Rugby League and $110 million for Rugby Union. Because nobody wants to watch the Rugby Union. Rugby Union can be good.
It might get more column inches in some newspapers, John. It might do that, but it's not. You can't see it adding value to the broadcaster. Are people? The money for these big sporting codes is in the broadcast deals. Are their TV ratings really going to grow because of these two? I don't think so.
Not at all.
Like I said, it'll get some more column inches in newspapers, but it's not going to solve rugby's problems.
And they had 80,000 people at an Australia-France game in Melbourne. 80,000 people. So people will still attend. It's very rare to get 80,000 people to an Australia versus anything in Rugby League. And so there are fans there. I just think their marketing, their way they do things is just so broken. And they really need to take maybe they can do one of those team meetings. The Bulldogs meeting.
Yeah, I think they need a lot of team meetings at the ARU, John.
It's really it's kind of sad because I like, some people would say there's too many sporting codes in Australia, but actually there's not, because most Australians will watch multiple sports. And Rugby Union could be one of them. And it used to be one of them, and they just went through this massive slide. I
think they've just gone to sleep at the ARU. That they haven't addressed the rugby. It's just not, there's too many stoppages in the game. The game gets bogged down too easily. You can turn on a game and the ball just gets stuck in one spot for 10 minutes and you just go, look, my life's too short for this game now. And until so those are the real problems with rugby. It's not having this NRL player or that NRL player signing up with us. It's the average fan just doesn't want to sit down and watch a game of rugby when you can watch the far more entertaining product that is rugby league.
But they can still get 85,000 people to a game. It's just bizarre to me. There's not, like I said, man, if they did it...
That's the thing, they can get 85,000 to a game, but how many are watching on TV?
They can't get 85,000
That's where
on TV.
The money's not in the gate takings, it's in the TV
That comes
deal.
down to better quality marketing, better quality broadcasting and stuff like that. If you tomorrow ran Australia versus New Zealand, the two best rugby league teams in the world, took them down to the MCG, you wouldn't get 85,000 people. If you took them to, what's the Sydney football one called now? Homebush. They wouldn't get 85,000 people.
Yeah.
They'd probably top out at 35,000, 40,000.
Yeah.
Which is good for rugby league. But the fact that they can get 85,000 people to a rugby union game in Australia, a game that meant nothing, it wasn't like a world, Australia Matildas in the World Cup thing where they finally fighting for the third spot or whatever. It was a warm-up game. Had 85,000 people there. So there are fans there. But, man, really, just forget NRL. Rugby Union has to forget NRL players and build their competition.
Yeah, I think that the difference for me between the way newspapers cover sport and the TV stations is the newspapers give people what they think people care about. They'll do a lot of story. I can see it now. They'll do a lot of Suwali will play in some club rugby game to get warmed up for the Waratahs or whatever. Crichton, if he joins rugby, will do the same, and the newspapers will all go there and cover it. But then the TV networks will look at the TV ratings for rugby and realise that nothing much has changed. They won't get more money for the broadcast deal, so they will have spent all this money on these league players for nothing because they won't get it back from the broadcast deal. And things will just continue on as they are because they won't address these core problems.
I think they should take that whatever millions of dollars they're going to give them Angus Crichton and give it to the women's rugby team. that's my do it rugby. Any other sporting news?
I think we might have a bit of a wrap there, John.
All right,
big weekend coming up.
Yes, very excited for the finals. UFC. We'll see what happens in the Rugby World Cup. Don't forget to go to smartb.com.au for all your sports news. Like and subscribe us on all of our socials at SmartB app and follow us on YouTube. I don't even know how to promote the YouTube. Just search for SmartB. All right, see you guys next week.
Thanks, John. See you, mate.
See you, mate.